In a previous video, I mentioned that a lot of people come to the gym after they see the Olympics and they want to start a sprint program, or they want to start a swim program. They want to start some sort of program to look like the athletes that they just saw in the Olympics. That's what we want to get into today. We're going to get into what an actual program were to look like should you take on really wanting to look like that. I think a lot of you are going to be surprised at what's really going on behind the scenes and what goes into that program. Just so you know, I've rounded up some of the work times and I've rounded down some of the rest times. So to be clear, I said I rounded up. I made the work times seem higher and the rest times seem lower. So I want you to really think about that as we move forward. After my last video, I realized that I had a friend who I could reach out to give me as precise of a breakdown of what an Olympic program looks like. I reached out to a friend of mine, Virjilio Griggs, who also happens to be an Olympic sprinter for Panama. He was a 200-meter sprinter. I asked him if he could send me a week's worth of training so I could show you guys and break down the time. So when we get started, we start with a Monday, because if you don't do it on Monday, Monday always wins, right? Well, I think you're gonna be surprised. Monday is actually a recovery day. We're hitting some pool work, we're hitting some foam rolling, we're doing some things that allow the body to move and get ready for the rest of the activity that's coming from the week. So we're spending about 20 to 30 minutes just moving whatever's stiff, moving whatever's sore, allowing the water to actually unload our central nervous system and allow us to recover. As far as an RPE goes, you're gonna hear me say the letters RPE multiple times throughout this video. RPE is the rate of perceived exertion. What does that mean? On a scale of 1 to 10, how hard is everything? 10 being the absolute hardest, 1 being, Anyone who's worked with me in the past knows I give everything a 1 to 10 scale. RPE is exactly what I'm quoting. I just never told you guys what it is. For anyone who doesn't know, now you know. So on Monday, very low intensity. At most, we're looking at about a 5 on an RPE scale, but for the most part, it should be a lot of recovery, moving through all your joints, getting everything going that is stiff, using that water to kind of unload your central nervous system, and also the water acts like a source of compression for the rest of your body to get rid of any extra fluid or swelling that might be in the body from any soreness. Tuesday, we start to reintroduce speed on Tuesday. So there's a 15 to 20 minute warm-up. And on most days, the warm-up's gonna be somewhere around 15 to 20 minutes. In some cases, the warm-up's longer. During that warm-up, you're doing some foam rolling, some modified sprint drills. When we look at the actual work, we're doing 6 sets of sprints, but when you look at the distance of those sprints, they range from 15 meters up to 25 meters. So what does that mean? What is 15 to 25 meters? It's not really far. We're starting at 15 meters, working up to 25 meters. It's not a big distance. You're working on the skill of exploding out of the block. You're wearing ankle weights to work on opening up those hips, using your abdominals and core to get you moving. So it's skill work. After our skill work, once we make it to that one sprint at 25 meters, that's where we're going hard. About an RPE of 8, but you're also not going a full distance. So remember I said that Virjilio is a 200-meter sprinter. Well, at this point, we're still quite a few meters away from his full sprint distance. In between each one of those sprints, you're looking at somewhere between a 1 to 2 minute rest. So I rounded all the rest time down to 1 minute for most of the things so you can see what's actually happening here. There is a reason why there's a rest in there, and I'm not gonna get into that today. We get to 4 100-meter sprints, and that's at an RPE of 8. So on a scale of 1 to 10 again, 10 being the hardest thing ever, 8, you're going pretty hard. You're trying to go for speed, hit the same time every time. You're not going for maximum exertion. And once you hit that 100 meters, you're just casually walking back to the start to do it again. So that's important. You have to allow your body time to recuperate so that it can produce the same amount of force and the same performance time and time again. Remember, these athletes are training for performance. The way they look is because of how they have trained. We finished up with another 12-minute cool down, 400-minute walk or jog, some static stretching. So you're gonna notice some themes here as we go. So when we hit Wednesday, we're looking at our first full speed day. And I wanna take a second, I wanna highlight the warm-up. This isn't a typo. It's 55 to 65 minutes of getting warm and ready for exercise. A lot of people that are watching this video don't spend 55 to 65 minutes a week warming up on exercise. So what we need to do is look at that, because this is where you see a difference between elite level athletes and the average person. And an elite level athlete understands the value of a warm-up, they understand the value of recovery. So when people say, oh, I could do that, no, you can't, because most people's heads explode when you look at the recovery that these athletes are going through. So then we do an individualized warm-up. That individualized warm-up is going to be the things that you need to be doing. Walking drills, knee tucks, things that are going to get your body moving specifically for your event. From there, we're going into some more skill work. So we spent a long time working on this skill. Virjilio is a 200-meter sprinter. So for this, it's a 120-meter sprint. And he's working on the part where he has the most issues with. So whether it's coming out of the turn, whether it's going into the turn, the skill work is all based around your body, your specific needs. After that, there's one all-out sprint. That one all-out sprint is beyond his distance. So he's normally sprinting 200 meters. We're now sprinting 300 meters. We're going a little bit farther. And then, of course, we're getting a nice full recovery. So you can see the work on that is somewhere around 30 seconds. Again, I rounded. And then a 4-minute recovery before going into the remainder of the cool down. So it's going to be another 400-meter walk or jog, and then some static stretching. So you'll notice at the end of each one of these workouts, there's stretching so far. Getting in and touching your toes once or twice doesn't count as a warm-up. Just diving directly into exercise is never really a good choice. And no matter where you go, you're going to see something that says you should be doing some sort of warm-up to get your body ready for physical activity. Thursday, it's another light day. So there is undulation to how he's training. It's easy, medium, hard, back to light. This happens for a reason. This allows the body to adapt. All too often we go too hard, we can't adapt efficiently. Another 15 to 20 minute warm up, mobilizing what's stiff, mobilizing what's sore. Then we go into a workout. The workout is a ladder where we're going 400 meters, 300 meters, 200 meters, 300 meters, 400, and then back down to 2. RP is a 7. So you're going pretty hard, not all out exertion. You're not left super winded. You're not dying. You're just working. After that, we have another 4 100-meter sprints and an RP of 8. So now you're working just a little bit harder for a shorter distance. Still, you're running out, walking back. The goal with that walk back is for your recovery time. It allows your heart rate to come down. It allows you to reset yourself. It allows you to breathe a little bit. And by default, if you're sprinting at max intensity or near max intensity, you're gonna need somewhere between 60 to 2 minutes worth of time to recuperate. We need to be able to look at that and understand that, again, training for performance is different than just training for calories. After that, we're looking at another static stretch to cool down. This was the day that seemed to give me the most problems. I actually had to reach out to Virjilio and figure out what this word was, because when you look at social media, this doesn't exist. There's no way that an Olympic athlete would get a day like this in their schedule. So it took me a second to realize that the day was actually an off day, a recovery day. Maybe some foam rolling, maybe some light stretching, maybe some cryotherapy, going to an ice bath or going to one of those cryo booths or whatever to recover the body. So we have 2 days so far that are primarily recovery. And if we actually look at all the warm-up time and cool-down time, we're looking at a significant amount of time spent recovering, spent on skill, and not actually working out. It's okay to take days off. It's okay to plan days off, and it's okay to adhere to a strict day off policy where all you really do is move your body a little bit and get that blood flowing. Saturday. So Saturday, we're spending some time using a VertMax, and I know most of you guys don't know what a VertMax is. While I'm doing the explaining, there's gonna be some videos of Virjilio doing VertMax right here. The skill work that he's doing is somewhere around 30 seconds on, and then you have 30 seconds to a minute of rest and recovery. So everything that's happening is happening in bursts. The reason why 30 seconds is important for Virjilio is it's close to the time that he's actually doing his sprints. When we look at training for something specific, there's not a huge benefit to training for something bigger than what you're training for. What we do is we're training within the parameters of the event. You're looking at basically 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off. That's how I broke this down for each one of these movements that he's going through throughout the whole cycle. Afterwards, we end with a hill sprint. Based on the time that it takes him to run those 200 meters, assuming the hill is 200 meters, you're looking at sprint up, walk down. So you're spending 3 minutes sprinting, because it's only a few hill sprints, and then 8 minutes recovering before we go into our cool down. Our cool down is, again, static stretching. Total time here, it's a higher intensity day, 121 minutes. So when you look at what happened, the first 55 to 65 minutes were just spent on warming up before the work started. When we look at actual work here, you're looking at somewhere around 18 minutes of work. Again, I'm gonna go over all the time spent working and cooling down and recovering at the end, but This way you can kind of see where we are so far. So the last day of the week. So we treat this like a mock competition day. We have our standard warm-up. The warm-up is actually gonna be a little bit longer than what I've put on here because we're going back into another 55 to 60 minute warm-up. We look at the actual workout. You're looking at running the distance you're actually running, assuming, because again, it's a mock competition, assuming how many heats you're running and how many people are there. They're looking at up to 6 sprints, potentially more, potentially less, depending on how big of a competition we're looking at. We're looking at 6 sprints with anywhere between 4 to 5 minutes of rest in between each sprint. So you can see I rounded down recovery time on this one and rounded up the sprint time. Once we're done with all that, some more stretching. You can see what a week looks like for an Olympic athlete. When we break down the actual time, total time spent training was around 420 minutes. That's from start to finish with each one of those workouts. Some of those days are gonna be a little bit longer, some will be a little bit shorter. All of it's gonna depend on how much time the athletes were working, what kind of skill acquisition was going on, what kind of coaching was going on. None of those days were hours upon hours long. There was 2 very long days, but the remainder of it was not as long as people would think. Most of these athletes are not spending 3 to 4 hours training a day. They spend more time recovering than they do working hard. When we look at our recovery time for all of these workouts combined, without the off day, you're looking at 366 minutes of recovery. So what does that mean? Throughout the week, 366 minutes are spent in very low intensities. In past videos, I've talked about an 80-20 split. 20% of the time you're working as hard as possible, 80% of the time you're cruising through the workouts, working on skill. Well, what we can see with these athletes is they're actually doing a 90-10 split. 90% of the time, they're focusing on skill acquisition, recovery, mobility, getting their bodies primed and ready for activity. 10% of the time, they're working on maximal effort or near maximal effort. So when you think about that spectrum of time, if we have 420 minutes in a week that we're working out and you're spending 420 minutes trying to kill yourself, that's why you're not seeing the same results that an Olympic level athlete would be seeing.